I am inside the VisiTel 1987's future of video telecommunication. For the first time, Mitsubishi's visual telephone display meant an affordable video phone so that you could see who was on the other end of your RJ11 cable, and they could see you.
The only problem is that the VisiTel video phone doesn't send video and you can't use your phone while it's working. Now your grandma Myrtle accidentally FaceTimes you for free because her Werther's Originals greased fingers pushed the wrong button. But the dream of video communication is older than you think, was more expensive than you can imagine, and caused the most innovative company on the planet to flush $500 million down the toilet. But the biggest surprise of all is built into our own evolution. Despite spending millions of years developing our visual systems so we can instantly and expertly process facial expressions and body language, despite our never-ending commitment to mastering all the complexities of reading human appearance, it turns out we may be better off not seeing each other at all. And while video conferencing is ubiquitous now, from remote Zooming and Google Meeting for work to live high-quality multi-user video calls on iOS, Android, WhatsApp, Discord, the thing is, almost nobody wanted this. I grabbed the March 1988 issue of Popular Science because I saw that it featured a cover story about the dawn of consumer-friendly video phones, here and now under $400, and they use your existing phone lines without a premium charge. William J. Hawkins heralded the arrival of Mitsubishi's VisiTel, and he anticipated a wave of similar devices from Sony, Sharp, and all the other major electronics brands. And the potential for the devices included augmenting the shopping experience out of paper catalogs, having your real estate broker show you pictures of a house you're interested in, making sign language viable for phone calls, and no more blind dates. Finally! And Hawkins also predicted that video phones could be hooked up to peripherals like printers that could make hard copies of the images, or sending clips from home movies you recorded on your camcorder. He actually got a lot of that right. So I grabbed a pair of brand new, never-opened VisiTels off eBay. Obviously, you need two of these things to work, or else one person's just sending pictures of their face out into the ether. The box is oddly hideous. It's covered with the Mitsubishi logo, but it looks like you're about to talk to Max Headroom with chickenpox. And there's these brown splatters. I have no idea how these brown splatters even happened. I do not want to know how these brown splatters even happened. The unit itself is actually really cool. It doesn't look a whole lot different from the newest gen of Amazon's Echo Show. The VisiTel has a 4.5-inch black and white CRT screen with a 96 by 96 pixel display resolution and 32 levels of grayscale. So obviously no color photos. The embedded camera is a 16mm fixed lens with a 15-inch to 25-inch depth of field, and there are 8 brightness control settings. The back has an RJ11 jack to hook it up to your phone line, and that's it. In an era of shockingly complex devices, the VisiTel LU500 was pretty efficient and extremely user-friendly. To turn it on, you just slide open the lens cover of the camera, and it displays a video image of you, ready for the other VisiTel user to see. So you just give Grandma a call and you see her brand new dentures, right? Wrong. Here's what happens instead. I'll just connect these VisiTels to each other and to test them out. Hitting the send button takes a freeze frame photo and sends that over the standard telephone wire. And during that whole time, you can't talk and you can't hear the other person. The receiving VisiTel unit then rebuilds and mirrors the image properly for your friend, family member, coworker, or blind date. The problem with sending video over telephone lines is simple, actually. It's the bandwidth. A phone line at the time carried about 3.5 kilohertz, so 3,500 pieces of information could be sent per second. To put that into perspective, TV required 4.5 million at the time. When you press and hold the send button, the VisiTel breaks down the 96 by 96 black and white image into data, representing picture information, and then holds it in dynamic random access memory. And then the pixels from memory are read sequentially and used to control the amplitude or volume of a modulated audio signal with a 1747 Hz tone. Sending an image sounded like this. The varying amplitude of the incoming signal is converted to a digital grayscale for each pixel and is sequentially stored in the DRAM. So it builds the picture over time. Data from the DRAM are read out, converted to an analog grayscale, and displayed on the end user's screen. And the VisiTel can store 3 of those images in its memory as long as the unit remains powered on. But what about phone lines and connections that suck? They actually factored that into the technology. Huge variances in phone line quality were mitigated by what's called a preamble. A tone burst was sent to the receiving phone just ahead of the picture so it knows the photo transmission is coming. The whole start-to-finish transmission and display process takes 5.5 seconds, which was a major improvement over Sony's unit taking 10 seconds. And that's for black and white. Mitsubishi said color images in future models would take 20 seconds. Okay, so both of these units test fine. I should be able to make a VisiTelephone call. I'm gonna try by giving one of these VisiTels to producer Matt Tabor. I'll teleport to 1988 and I'll show him my brand new copy of Mario 2. This was revolutionary technology in the late 80s, but the promise of talking to video screens started all the way back in the 70s. The 1870s. The December 9th, 1878 issue of Punch magazine printed a George de Maurier illustration of Thomas Edison's telephonoscope, a vision of a future device that could transmit light as well as sound. The image is an unbelievably prescient artifact depicting an exciting, vibrant future of instant visual telecommunication over unfathomable distances. Right? No! The immediate reaction is to think that the drawing is an enthusiastic, forward-thinking glimpse into the future of technology, and actually a very smart one. That's an example of presentism, which is essentially interpreting past events and evidence through modern attitudes and values. We like it now, so they must have wanted it then. But this entire illustration was part joke and part scathing critique. It suggests that Edison was a crazy inventor who worshipped an overly enthusiastic, techno-utopian future, and it mocks the exaggerated potential of what a device like a telephonoscope would actually do for us. What the comic actually depicts is discovery mania. Ivy Roberts described the phenomenon in Visions of Electric Media, Television in the Victorian and Machine Ages. The people reading Punch in 1878 weren't anything like us. We look back and assume that everyone was thrilled with a burst of world-improving technologies like electricity and photography, but back then, there was a deep strain of cynicism that saw these inventions as goofy at best and ruinous at worst. It went beyond the economic concerns of the Luddites. It was really about whether we were changing our lives for the worse as an emerging class of technocrats promised us salvation. The telephonoscope comic wasn't a techno-fantasy for a future videophone. It was satire, making fun of the very concept. And it stayed that way for a while. The 1936 Charlie Chaplin film Modern Times spoofs industrial society. It shows the president of the Electro Steel Corp using a large videophone to oversee and direct his employees. At the end of the scene, the tramp sabotages the phone by cranking on a bunch of levers and wheels. And 9 years before, Fritz Lang's 1927 silent film Metropolis depicted a future of industrialists high in skyscrapers using videophones to communicate with the overworked subterranean masses. It was a grim, depressing vision of the future. But what Fritz Lang didn't realize was at exactly the same time as Metropolis was delighting millions and earning a spot in every future film student's course of study, Secretary of Commerce Herbert Hoover who 2 years later would be the 31st president of the United States, successfully tested a videophone prototype to both send and receive video with AT&T President Walter Gifford in New York City. As Lang and Chaplin were sounding alarm bells through art, the future was already happening. And the videophone's moment was meant to be the 1964 New York World's Fair. A Bell Labs executive named Julius Malner had supported the development of a consumer videophone technology that could be in every home. He predicted that the picture phone will be the primary mode by which people will be communicating with one another. Picture phone booths were set up at the AT&T Bell System Pavilion. Bell was on its way to sinking $500 million trying to usher in the videophone revolution, and they could finally showcase it on the world's biggest stage. They even had a song for the picture phone called The Ballad for the Fair. You have to listen to this.
In a place where electronic wonders abound, a marriage of sight to the drama of sound, a wonderful coupling of vision and speech, then a ride to the future and the past within reach.
It was all legitimately incredible, and it all went really, really badly. Which is weird because Bell Labs is probably the most important innovative company of the 20th century. It's impossible to capture Bell Labs' influence on the modern world. Telephones and transistors, vacuum tubes, long-distance calling, transatlantic cables, radar, lasers, binary code systems, photovoltaic cells, charged couple devices, 10 Nobel Prizes? You're watching this video on a smartphone on your toilet because of Bell Labs. They push the limits of technology at all levels, government and household, and they knew how to create the future better than anyone. The problem was, did anyone want their telephone to show them in their underwear? More than 25 years before he served as project lead on the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego kids show, Howard Blumenthal actually used the picture phone at the World's Fair. He recalled that his junior high crush Maria wasn't crazy about having to get dressed up to talk on the phone, and that his parents agreed with Maria. When Blumenthal wrote about the Mitsubishi VisiTel, he said it had two problems. Not enough people had them, and they were too expensive. But Bell Labs, Blumenthal, and everyone else dancing on the cutting edge of technology got it wrong. Maria was the one who got it right, and maybe more than she realized. A 2021 study from Carnegie Mellon concluded that video conferencing actually reduces collective intelligence. But video phones can't make you dumber if you don't want to be seen at all. In The Idea Factory, Bell Labs and the Great Age of American Innovation, John Gertner detailed the market research Bell conducted at the World's Fair. The majority of the 700 people surveyed said that seeing the person they were talking to was, quote, very important. So that was encouraging, but what about being the one on display? The beauty of the telephone isn't just that it connects two people in real time, it's that they can both connect comfortably. They can sit on a couch or a chair at any casual position, unshowered, wearing old clothes in a messy house, flipping through a magazine or watching TV as they talk, and the other person doesn't know. There's a beautiful layer of anonymity to a phone call or a text message that allows for mutual consent with communication. When it comes to video, all of that gets way tougher. Two people need to be totally comfortable both seeing and being seen to make it work, and if there's any kind of mismatch, the whole process breaks down. Maria could have saved Bell Labs at least $400 million. A. Michael Knoll worked for Bell Labs in the 1960s researching human communication, and he was also suspicious. He said in a 1988 interview that using the telephone is akin to whispering in the ear. Seeing somebody almost destroys the intimacy of the communication. When we ask an audience whether they want to see on the phone, half or more say no. There were good reasons not to want video, and there were great reasons to stick to audio. So, Let's talk about how to burn billions of dollars. Howard Blumenthal was right about the consumer cost being prohibitive, and Bell Labs was about to find out. Just 12% of those surveyed at the World's Fair said they'd pay between $40 and $60 a month for videophone service. It was cool, but they didn't want to pay a premium for it, and that's if they already had the device. That same year, AT&T opened picture phone rooms in New York, Chicago, and Washington. You could rent one of these rooms for up to $27 for the first 3 minutes, and someone in one of the other cities would go to their room to picture phone video call with you. A total of only 71 calls were made in 6 months, probably because it was $90 per minute in today's dollars. And even though the facility stayed open until 1970, not a single picture phone call was made in the final year. Here's a question. What would you pay $90 a minute for? A year prior to AT&T's zero customer year, they predicted that picture phones would have 1 million users, generating $1 billion a year by 1980. It was so exciting that film director Stanley Kubrick sent a team to Bell Labs to get a sense of what the future of communication would look like. And that's why Dr. Floyd calls his daughter on a picture phone in the 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. So the obvious solution was to just roll it out to the masses. They had to plow forward because the future was waiting. In 1970, picture phone opened markets in Pittsburgh, Chicago, and Oak Brook for home video call service. And again, it was really expensive. $160 per month for the equipment and service, which is about $1,322 per month adjusted for inflation, and it was 25 cents per minute after the first half hour, which is $2.07 per minute today, which is definitely a lot better than $90. But after a full year and a half of the test rollout in Pittsburgh, they had a total of 8 customers. 8! They even cut the price in half, and it didn't matter. Not only did people not want to spend all that money for video phones, a whole lot of people didn't see the point in having a video phone at all. Bell Labs and the citizens of Pittsburgh had unknowingly run afoul of the law. Metcalfe's Law. Computer engineer Robert Metcalfe coined the term to explain a phenomenon where the value of a network device increases proportional to the square of the number of people connected to the system. So, video phones don't have a lot of value until a lot of people are using them, and a lot of people aren't going to use them until a lot of people are using them. The value of video calling wasn't obvious. Most of its potential customers were somewhere on a spectrum of disinterested and hostile. It was hideously expensive, and it wasn't significantly better than the cheap existing alternative. So video calling got switched off, if it was ever really switched on in the first place. The prospect of seeing and being seen as you talk pretty much went back into science fiction. Like Captain Picard using video calls to talk to Felicium addicts, which is basically space crack. That episode aired in April of 1988, a month after the VisiTel cover story in Popular Science. Consumers were a little more comfortable with home technology and finally starting to get excited about it. Companies like Mitsubishi and Sony thought it was time to re-energize the idea of video calling. And they were so close to being right. Use cases were emerging in unlikely places. The July '88 issue included an update from the editor-in-chief about VisiTels being used to alleviate jail overcrowding in Maryland. 7 people under house arrest were issued VisiTel units, and each day law enforcement could video call them to verify that they were indeed home. One offender said, "I'm not happy about it, but it sure beats going to jail." And a New York Times forum titled "Videophone, a Flop That Won't Die" generated a response from doctors at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, who said that VisiTels could be useful as what we'd come to know as telemedicine, and even for families to communicate with patients who need to be in isolation for weeks at a time. This was 1992. The doctors lamented that the bad news is that Mitsubishi stopped making these instruments. They were not profitable. And about 10 minutes after that, all the standalone video calling devices, the picture phones and the VisiTels that techno-futurists had dreamed of for more than a century were wiped completely off the map by the internet and webcams. And now, despite 100 years of skepticism, every smartphone is a video phone. All right, it's time to call Matt, and it's time to go back 35 years for a black and white pixelated glimpse into the future. Matt's mom is a serious fan of old phones. She's probably got 20 of them, so I borrowed this sweet one with the giant number pad. I like this a lot. Unlike me, she's got a landline, so I set Matt up with the other VisiTel. I had to buy this Cell 2 jack Bluetooth adapter so I could pair this with my cell phone to mimic a landline. I plugged in the adapter's power unit, and then I plugged the old phone into the VisiTel, and then the VisiTel goes into the Cell 2 jack. And just like that, I've got a fake landline. So now I just need to call Matt.
Hello?
Matt, you're not gonna believe what game my mom got me for my birthday. Check this out. Hold on. Let me send it to you.
Oh yeah, I'm coming over. Hey, tell your mom I'm watching her microwave the bagel bites. I'm sending you my gamer face.
No. I don't know. I don't know what went wrong, but your picture looks like Satan's sonogram. The retro future is bleak. Thanks anyway, I gotta go.
All right, see ya.
The Popular Science article ends with a quote from AT&T spokeswoman Daisy Ottman, stating that picture phones will be new and exciting only if you believe a picture's worth 1,000 words. But what if you only want the words? See you in the future.